All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to one of the last AU Core Technical Design Group meetings before we go out for our ballot for Working Standard for the second release of AU Core. So we're just working through some of those last aspects now. I'd like to start today with an acknowledgement of country and that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all gather today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge the First Peoples as the first scientists, educators and healers. Where we're up to, and this is our second last meeting, we've gone through a whole number of our preparations through a testing event, through some of the feedback from that testing and looking at whether or not we can assess what were the new profiles from introduced in AU Core, so healthcare service, medication, statement and related person, as to whether or not they met the maturity criteria for one, and they did, so we passed that. And now we're in this meeting, which this has really been the last call for changes. So there's one change, there's a couple more editorial changes coming through. We've got a bit of a AU Core testing coverage update that will lead us into a review on whether or not we think that those new artifacts are at AFMM 2. And Dushi's going to take us through that. And then we'll also then have a look at our variance statement, and we'll give a bit of background on what this is for people who are joining us in R2 and weren't there for R1. And then after we do that today, which is our main kind of intention to work through those things, our last call is where we're hoping to have had all the changes we've agreed so far applied, and to kind of walk through that with the group to confirm this is our ballot scope, this is the work that we've done for R2, and to also do a walkthrough of the QA.html file, which is the automated validation file from the tooling suite that comes from the Fire Validator, and just have a look at that and talk through why there's anything that's there, whether we're inheriting it from AU base or just, I guess, do a bit more of an informative session on that one. And then we publish. I think the plan after that, because we've done all the content work, is really to just do a ballot process 101, especially to support people who are interested in the ballot process. Whether you've signed up to be a balloter or not, you can still take part. And if you come into these calls, you are actually taking part in the ballot process, at least in part in ballot reconciliation. And we'll run through all the different roles and how that works and what your responsibilities are if you're an AU Core TDG member, and what your responsibilities are if you're a ballot voter. And so that's kind of the plan. Which brings us to the detailed agenda for today. We'll start off with our usual business, which we always do, including talking about the results of the eVote that came out. We'll go into that testing coverage update. Tim will take us through it. AFMM 2 review, that's Dushi. Got AU Core JIRAs, there's 2, that's Liam and me. Then variance statement. If we have time, there's another page that I think is worth looking at some of the updates on that, which is comparison page, before we talk about what's next. So before we move on, I just want to confirm, is there anything else that people would like to add to the agenda today? All right, if there is, pop your hand up. Otherwise, let's keep going. So our first point of usual business is always approval of minutes. These were sent round, I think, last week. So let's just have a look through those. So these have been sent round. Oh, look, you can already see that some of the changes we agreed on have been applied. We've got our attendees. We have this. I note, though, that the slides are not present. So I'll note here in action that we need to add the slides, the slide pack from last week here. But we do have the transcript and chat log. The minutes are fairly comprehensive. There's no outstanding feedback on the minutes that I'm aware of. Does anyone need more time to review these? Hearing none, and with the proviso that the slides will be attached to this, is someone happy to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion, Danielle.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Is anyone happy to second that?
I'll second it, Toshi.
Okay, thanks, Dushi. While I'm going to the poll, are there any other comments or questions on these minutes? I'm just launching the poll for approval of minutes of the previous meeting. If you've dialed in, you won't be able to see these, but you can call out your name and say whether you are affirmative, negative, or abstain. For some people, you will not be able to record a vote here due to Zoom, but you do have access to the chat. If you can, please put your vote in the chat. So I think, for example, Tim, that applies to you because you're a co-host.
Yep.
You can't vote. All right, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll. Okay, with the vote in the chat, we have 15 affirmative, 0 negative, 13 abstain. The vote passes, so those minutes are approved. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I think I forgot to share results. I'll just briefly, there they are. Stop sharing. Okay. So back to the slides. All right, so we've passed those minutes. Next part, what was on the agenda was a review of feedback to our mission and charter. Marvin has been looking after that, and Marvin isn't available today. So we're going to postpone that to the next call. So let's go on to our next item, which is results of the eVote. So this was a couple of jurors, a couple of change requests around clarifying where must supports should be applied on PractitionerRole Telecom and Organization.telecom. We'd had this on agenda for meetings and we'd just never gotten to it. And the decision out of the last meeting was to just put this out for an electronic vote because it's fairly simple and well understood. And so we've got the two aspects here. We've got the first one, which was the AU Core PractitionerRole proposal. The proposal, for people who are wondering, is that we place must support on PractitionerRole telecom system and telecom value, and only those two. That had affirmative votes, so that passed with 16 votes affirmative. For the organisation, which was essentially the same proposal, that Organization.telecom had must support placed on system and value, that also passed. So these have been approved and the changes have been applied and are in AU Core. There were no negatives and there were no comments on this. So I think that demonstrated that this was, I think, really clearly shared that these are the minimum kind of aspects for telecom. Are there any comments or questions about this eVote that you'd like me to go into a bit more detail on? All right, I'm going to move on past that. Updates and news. Okay, so reminder to people that the next HL7AU Connectathon, which is our next opportunity to come together and do testing, maybe some workshopping, is the 1st to 2nd of September in Brisbane. That's sold out. The Brisbane Connectathon is always, well, typically at maybe a smaller venue, but please email events@hl7.com.au to go on the wait list if you're interested in attending. And also, if you have already got a ticket, but it just turns out you can't make it that day, can you let HL7 know, again, via the same email, so that they can release those tickets to someone else? Next point of business, ballot sign up is open. So HL7AU made the announcement. Ballot sign up officially opened on, good question, is Brett on the line? I think it was the 6th of July. but it was a couple of days ago. So that's open for a month for people to sign up based on membership. If you've got any questions, please contact HL7AU. And if you didn't get an email and you think you should have because you think you're a HL7AU member, then absolutely please email HL7AU so we can get that sorted. The more people involved in ballot, the better. All right, next bit. Here's a couple of things that might be interesting for people, and I'm going to put these in the chat. So there's a eVote out on AU Base, and it's about adding a specific terminology code to identify insurance coverage of Australian Public Hospital. So this is out there if you're interested to participate in this vote or to find out more information, then you should go to this link. And I'm trying to click on it and put it in the chat. So that's open for the next few days if you're interested to have a look. Next part, and this is an international one. So the wonderful people from Estonia, and they do a lot of great work in the interoperability space, are looking at shifting from CDA and V2 validation into FHIR. And they've put out a survey and they're going to share the results internationally, asking people to share their experience with FHIR validators. So I'm just going to also pop that in the chat. I've lost my mouse. Here we go. This is on Zulip. So I think this would be an interesting survey for people to contribute to. We have it sparked. There it is there, if you're interested to participate in providing your feedback and experience on FHIR validation and what you think should happen and what could happen, what does happen, what goes wrong, what goes right. Alrighty, so that's the updates in the news. Is there any updates in news that I've missed from people? Is there anything else that we need to share? All right, let's go through actions. Out of the last two meetings, we had a series of actions. Some of these are done, some of them are still in progress. The first one, because we have an action with Ruben on following up around some of the HL7AU board licensing policy updates around references to NCTS content and following that up with the Australian Digital Health Agency. We're tracking this in the Firework group and in the AU Core Technical Design group. Because this is related to getting some updated licensing statements. And so Ruben is still working through that. I did contact him and he's looking to work through that over the next week or so. So we should get an update, I think, in our next meeting. The next one here is on Brett and I looking into a tooling change. We're still looking into a tooling change, so we'll report back when we have results. This next one was on me, which was an evolution on some of the more interesting aspects of recording electronic communication details, like usually in telecom, and ensuring we could support values, and in particular, some of the content coming across with V2. I have not done this yet, so this is still on me. I hope I have actually done it in time to report back on our next meeting. Next one was on Liam. We went through one of the JIRAs in our last meeting and made a number of suggestions to come back to this meeting with an updated proposal for that profile guidance. And Liam has done that, so we can look forward to that shortly. And similarly, I had to send content out for an eVote, and we've just talked about that, so I can move on. And that's it for the actions. And then we're over to the AU Core test coverage. Tim, did you want to share your screen or do you want me to keep sharing mine and you just tell me to move on?
Yeah, if you can keep yours. I don't trust my computer to
Sure.
respond well with that. So thank you. And hello all the Fineites in the call. Thank you for turning up to the testing results and participating. It's a pretty important part of what we do for the development of our standards, specifically the AU Core. So it was, I think, great to have coverage from various companies on various systems. So I think the key point there really being, this is having 29 different products submitting results and testing the profiles. So that was very much appreciated. 20 AU core responders, 10 requesters, and 6 doing the profiles only, where it's the profile test above that is not a request or responder test result. So I think that was really good to see. I had a lot of FOMO because I wasn't able to attend the test event, but what I'd heard from the people from the agency that did attend was that it was very well received, and I think it was a really great session from what I hear. I think, and maybe I'll jump to a question to the group here, but if someone was at the event, would they like to just speak up and sort of share their thoughts around how it went, or any advice or thoughts about any improvements? So if anyone wants to sort of jump in now, put your hand up and sort of say what they felt about the event. I know it's, as I said, it's a great event to sort of align to the intended purposes and practices of the feasibility and responsiveness of the test standard. So it's a very important step for us to test the coverage of all these profiles, and encourage that if you weren't able to attend, that there is the upcoming Connectathon in September that will be also asking people to give us coverage in other profiles and do testing as well. No one put their hand up, so I'll move on to the next slide. So here we can see that the testing of the release to date has improved. So from our last testing event that we saw, we can see that there are various specific green arrows, which I love to see. It's an improvement on our conditions and coverage within our tests. The ones that are highlighted in blue there are the new to this release, and so they didn't have coverage last time, so they're newly tested as part of the new scope for this release. So I think flagging here, it's good to see that we've got a large amount of coverage, but we still require more improvements and coverage around things like the healthcare service, which had less coverage, which may lead to issues during ballot for risks around that. So would like for I think the group to think about trying to bring the ability to be able to test those services or those profiles, I guess, in the future events. So loss. So I think one of those call-outs that were made was medication statement. So it has jumped up from 8 to 15, and a few other ones that haven't really changed since the last Connectathon where it was tested, and that there is kind of no additional test across the observation profiles, which is good. There was a note from Steve, and Steve was supposed to attend to talk to this, but obviously he's sipping pina coladas in Fiji, which is lovely for him. But he mentioned something around the loss of additional responders from 13 to 20, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, okay, next slide, Danielle. Thank you. This is just another view of the coverage, and what the call out here is that anything with a solid green or black tick, green surrounding, the solid cut has been covered. So that means that we had 3 or more systems that tested 100% of the must support and mandatory elements of those profiles. The ones that are lightly coloured, shaded, where that there was only 80%, but between 80 and 100% of that was covered. So healthcare service and related person are one of those examples there where we didn't quite have the full coverage of it. And then the ones in orange there is that we had less than 80%, so we weren't able to test those scenarios and not fully covered to meet the and still need more coverage to get to that AFMM2 requirement and that maturity. So we will be calling out for people to help us support that profile
Actually,
coverage.
just comment on that.
Yep.
We're overachievers. So light green means we're done. We've hit the mark.
We've hit the mark.
We
That's
like
right.
to be more than just hitting the mark. We like to just absolutely nail it. So dark green is nailing it. Light green is, yeah, no, we've absolutely met the minimum requirements. That being said, I think healthcare service is supposed to be orange because we've only had 2 systems. So I think that's a color typo.
Yep. I think you could be right. I didn't note that.
We can look at that in the next
Yeah.
couple of slides, I think, that have the detailed metrics on it. But I think this is a copy-paste color typo for healthcare service. The others are absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Good call out there. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's definitely orange in the next slides. But if you jump to the next slide, it'll call it out there. So we had as covered here, we had a lot of the, as Danielle rightly points out, a lot of nailing it on those test results. And this graph, this table really represents, the coverage of those profiles, the number of systems that were testing those particular things, and a bit of a weighting of the number of elements within those profiles and the number of elements with more than 3 systems or more testing. So we had, a lot of good 100% there. So it was, again, great to see that level of coverage within the testing event. The 2 stars there are because they're new to the profile, sorry, not new to the profile, new to the release. And so, but for medications statement, really great to see that coverage. People have already sort of really smashing it. The healthcare service one's interesting. It's less. There's only 2 systems and only 4 of those mandatory items, and we'll cover that a little bit later on. But I think this is something that the agency is also looking into and trying to help provide some more test coverages. So next, I think an action from our perspective, the agency will be looking at helping that support. Thanks. And the next slide there is really around calling out the related person. Same scenario, it's above 80%, so hit the mark. So there's just one element there that wasn't covered, so we'll probably get that, pick that up in the next event. And then the capability statements and the search parameters are ones that we've got 100% coverage in as well. So that's really good to see. Noting there that the core requested capability statement wasn't quite there, didn't miss it, but so we'll be looking at support for that for the next Connectathon. We only got what looks like, only 40% of that 147 elements that needed to be part of that test. So I'm assuming that there might be a specific reason. I think Steve had mentioned that there was less on the requesting side of systems that were able to support this, and that's why we saw
the reason is that typically requesters are client applications, and they're usually very use case based. And so while we've got 9, which has been amazing, all of those, like if we look at OX from, with Scripty or POSWorks, they're only looking at a subset of resources to satisfy particular medications use cases. Whereas we find that a lot of the responders that are satisfying that are things like the EMRs, and they have incredibly broad coverage. So that's why we're seeing that real disparity in coverage from requesters. So I think we just need to canvas.
Yeah.
We can talk about that coming into the Connectathon, is trying to just invite a whole bunch of different Fire-based apps to come in that do all sorts of different use cases and really throw it all at AU Core and see what's coming out.
Yeah. And I just saw in the chat, Michelle, your question about my EMR not in the list. If and I don't know, Danielle, if you wanted to respond to that up front. It's not being on the list here just means that I think, you know, there's no mandatory requirement for the testing events, just that they're not, we don't have visibility of what they're doing, and they like it would have the open option of them inviting them in.
Absolutely. So what we include on the list is the implementers who have come along or participated offline and then submit to us things that they're happy for us to count in coverage and share. And we do have a lot of participation from other EMRs anyway, but I guess we're only really seeing a subset of these results from the organizations that are happy to submit their logos and submit the results and have that be made publicly available. It does keep growing. And obviously we would love to have more, including that one. And yeah, if there's ways we can work out how to invite them or get them along and really get that part of this, that would be amazing.
Great. Okay, I'll jump to the next slide. And so this is the detail, right? So, and in fact, I'll just pop in the chat the link to the Confluence page that has the detailed summary of the testing event that was captured. But for individual parts here, the profiles, specifically here, the healthcare service, there's 4 elements that are in that requirement, and we saw that for identifier, we saw evidence from 2 systems. I think the agency is probably one of those, and the type, only one of those systems provided that information. We need probably coverage in the name and telecom is what we're trying to, I guess, bring to that point. So I guess, and for healthcare service agency, as I mentioned before, we'll be looking and making effort to help increase that coverage. So it'll take an action for the agency to go back and do that. And another point, I guess, I'll point out is that I think Steve stood up an Inferno test tool, I think, to help play a part in allowing the participating systems to test their implementation against the standard. I think that was received really well. I'm not sure around the details around that, Danielle, but I think it was something that we could probably look at for the next one.
You mean the AU Core Inferno? I mean, that's
part of it.
Yes, we've had it for a while. But we can, coming into the next Connectathon, we could absolutely do a bit more of a briefing to the community on that, because it's available all the time. It's not just something we stand up for testing events. So 100% of the time, you can access things like the Sparked Fire server and test data in Inferno and just have a look at how all of this is working. So we could do a session on that, either maybe not next week because we're still doing ballot preparation, but straight after that, we could do a quick run through for everybody if there's interest.
Cool. And then I've got a few more slides that sort of talk to the detail as well. So if we'll jump to those. The encounter healthcare service again, and the immunization as part of the requester profiles. We can see obviously the evidence of those for the specific parts were covered. The ones that aren't listed there are obviously missing from what we'll need to cover for the requirements next time in the other Connectathon. So, I mean, I'll let the group sort of take a look at that, and just mindful that in the upcoming Connectathon that will obviously be looking for coverage in those deficient areas. And I think that's it.
Any comments or questions on the testing update? All right, let's move on to AFMM 2. Dushi, did you want to share your screen or did you want me to keep sharing?
I think you can keep sharing if you're happy with that, Danielle, because I
Sure.
think this is going to be pretty simple. Okay, so we've been looking at maturity levels or AFMM levels for over a year now, I think, starting with route 0 and then going through to AFMM1 through R1 ballot process, and then to AFMM2 through connected zones and testing events, and also independent submissions of test results. So at this point, most AU core artifacts are already reached AFMM2, sorry. And today we'll just be looking at a few that meet that criteria now. So that's AU core medication statement, AU core related person, and we also have 2 search parameters, clinical patient and practitioner role practitioner. So yeah, just to recap, AFMM2 means that we have at least 3 independently developed systems, testing at least 80% of the core data elements based on scenarios. And I think in previous AFMM2 discussions, we agreed that AU core is designed to be generic. So there's no limitations on the scenarios. It's not restricted to any particular scenario workflow. So that's just flexibility that's part of the model, I guess. So earlier in the session, when Tim gave us the walkthrough of the testing event, we saw that some of the artifacts had 100% coverage, some had about 80%, and we also saw a few that still need more work. I don't know, Danielle, could we
Did you want
maybe,
me to pop back? Yeah,
yes,
okay.
pop back to
So
the
back
test results slide? Yeah, thank you.
oh,
Oh,
here. So that's
yeah,
medication
yeah.
statement.
So medication statement, we see that we have 100% coverage of all must support and mandatory elements. AU correlated person, slightly lower, 87% coverage, but it still satisfies requirement for AFMM2. And then I think it's the next slide. We have 2 search parameters, AU core clinical patient and AU core practitioner role practitioner, which have also been tested with 100% coverage. As Tim previously mentioned, all of this is available on the compliance testing page, which includes the full breakdown of who tested what, when, how many systems. We won't go through any of those details, but the link is available in the meeting chat. So looking at this JIRA now, that's what's being proposed to the group, that we endorse these 4 artifacts as AFMM2. We're just saying we just assessed these. We have evidence that these meet the criteria, and now I guess we can endorse them as a group. I'll just pause here for any comments or questions before I make a motion. Anyone has any comments, questions?
Is there anything people would like Dushi to go into more detail on?
Sorry,
All right. Hearing nothing,
yeah.
I'm happy to entertain a motion.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept this JIRA and endorse these 4 artifacts as AFMM2.
Thanks, Dushi. We have that motion. Is anyone happy to second?
Tim from the agency, we can second that.
Okay, thanks, Tim. We have a second. Are there any other questions or comments about this before we go to the poll? All right, I'm just going to pop up the poll now for the vote for the current motion, which is that these artifacts are demonstrated as meeting the criteria as shown on the screen for AFMM2. We've got 60% voted. Okay, I see someone in the chat. Thank you. All right. Just want a couple more people to vote. Affirmative, negative, or abstain, please. Okay, I'm going to count that down. Just double checking. Tim, have you posted your vote?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah, I've
+1
got it now.
affirmative. And
Yep,
John, is it +1?
Yon.
John, yeah, is it +1 affirmative or?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll. I'll share the results. So with the 2 in the chat, that is 27 affirmative, 0 negative, 7 abstain. The motion carries. We accept that these artifacts have met the criteria for AFMM2. Alrighty, thank you very much, Doshi.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's bop to the next part. So these are the AU Core JIRAs. So we're back and we're talking again about the guidance for more specific blood pressure observations. Liam, I hope you're on the line. I didn't check.
Yep, all good.
Did you want to share your screen or do you want to direct me on what I should click?
It's probably easier. I'll just share.
All right, I'll just have to stop sharing first. Hang on. Okay, you should be right.
Okay. All right, so this is the Jira that we've been discussing, and it's really about trying to add some more guidance on the AU core blood pressure profile to indicate how to represent, I don't know, positional information. So qualify the blood pressure observation to add like the position the patient was in when that blood pressure was taken. So we had a bit of discussion last time. I think generally we landed that we wanted some guidance, but we just wanted to get a bit more, I don't know, more detail in there and clean it up to have a bit of a discussion. I've done that. I've got 2 options, I suppose, which I'll show now. So this is just a local build of the AU Core IG, and this is the blood pressure profile specific implementation guidance. So I've basically everything in black is the existing content, and this strike through is the replacement part. So I'm suggesting we get rid of that bullet point and replace it with, I think, preferably maybe this blue section, and really that just gives some a couple of examples of how to qualify that, provide that qualifying information. And in this case, it'd be to be able to provide more specific codes, and to add the qualifying codes to observation code, to say just an example of sitting blood pressure, and then provide the observation component codes for sitting systolic, sitting, and sitting diastolic. And then standard sort of additional bullet point, which talks about the fire core specification vital signs table. So there's that option. I've also put together a more comprehensive version of that, which sort of just does the same thing, but it explicitly lists out the codes for how to represent sitting blood pressure, standing blood pressure, and lying blood pressure as well. So they're the 2 options I've put out, depending on people's appetite for detail.
So just to confirm, there are 2 options. They're delineated by color. There's the blue. If this isn't working for some people who can't see the variation in color, it's the first 2 bullet points.
Shall I highlight them?
Yep, that one there is option 1. That's complete. Liam, you've indicated you prefer that one.
I think that's a simpler one. I think it gives
Okay.
enough detail in the context of AU Core in this sense. Yep.
All right. And then there's a second option, which does a very similar thing, but it lists out even more examples. Basically, that's how I'm looking at this. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. And just
Okay.
explicitly, if it's required to really list out all of those SNOMED codes for each of those different contexts, it just provides that.
So we'll open this up for comment or question. Does anyone have an opinion on either of these options or a totally different alternative?
Hi, sorry, Danielle, it's Yoni from AG Healthcare Solutions. Just a comment on that is rarely used. It's probably a little bit of a minutiae topic, but nonetheless, I think the second option where you have standing, sitting, or lying with an additional cord is probably going to work the best for those that in very, very specific scenarios that actually need it and will be looking at as a clinician or researcher.
Thanks, Yoni.
I think so these positions are quite commonly used in primary care. How they're coded, I suppose, is what we're trying to provide guidance on here. And I guess it just stops. It's pretty simple if you are looking up SNOMED, but I suppose if you're not really familiar with that terminology, this does provide that additional guidance.
Sorry, to clarify, when I say rarely used, I meant in the clinical application point.
Okay.
You know, when you compare one blood pressure to another, whether it's sitting or standing, it's just good for record keeping. And, you know, later on, you can just ask the patient, you know, it's not that hard at the end of the day. But I take your point on notice. I think, you know, if there is a code to just reflect what was measured so that it doesn't confuse the doctors that next time measure and the blood pressure looks like it's fallen because the patient was standing, you know, that's, you know, reasonable, I guess, to reflect that in a separate code, but that's probably it.
Okay.
Right, thanks, Yoni. We've got Brett, and then after Brett, we have Michelle.
I was just going to give a vote for spelling it all out with each of the terms because I think it's useful information, and I think it's like the preamble, I think, to a profile one day that includes it. So I think it's actually useful to know what the kind of preferred options would be.
Slight comment shift. I don't think it's a separate profile. I think it's a preamble or a prelude to additional bindings, but I agree with you. I think it's
Some profiling.
somewhere on the pathway to that.
Cool. Thanks.
Michelle?
I thoroughly agree with number 2, but I'm just wondering from a consistency across the entire document, are there other instances where things are specified as much in detail, or is this actually sort of going a bit out of left field with this level of information in the in that particular section?
As one of the primary AU core editors, I'll comment on that. I think this is the first time we're going into greater detail. I think we've, in the first release, listed only a few concepts, very muchly more similar to the first option. So there are some other profiles that say you could do this, and then they listed a couple of concepts. I think you could make a reasonable argument that we only got that far because we had so much work to do in the first release that we're leaving it to later releases to pick up elaboration of things. So while this is an outlier in that sense, I don't necessarily view that as a true inconsistency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that you've done the work and spelt it all out for everybody. I think we should just leave it in so there's no ambiguity about what code should be used, and also nobody has to look it up, and it reduces the risk of error.
So you're a proponent for that second solution that let's have okay, yep.
Absolutely, yep.
Can I ask if there's anyone who wants, you go Landon first.
Just super quick, I completely agree. I really like it spelt out in the second solution so you can see diastolic quite clearly because we use that as well. So having it clearly identified. Second one is preferable for us. Thanks. All
right, so we've had 3 commenters. They've all been in favor of that second option about let's just list all those codes. Is there anyone who wanted to comment on the benefits of the first option?
Hi, Danielle, it's Rosemary here. I did put a comment in the comment. I have concerns about going down to complete detail. I think we should simply be stating as per SNOMED nomenclature. Otherwise, we would be repeating whatever's in SNOMED.
Liam, did you want to provide, I think, the reasoning behind why you've proposed that there is value in adding this into the profile specific guidance?
Yeah, I think the codes themselves are specifically used to identify the, I guess, the qualified observations. So when you do, well, the use case came from, say, CVD risk calculator application where it tries to query via servers for particular blood pressures, and it really wants to identify which only those that are sitting, or preferably those that are sitting, so that it can be used in a particular algorithm. So, and the way to do that is to query a specific code within that blood pressure resource, and to be able to consistently do that across different systems. Those blood pressure observations need to use the same code. So that's why it's important to be explicit in what that code is.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Tim?
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Liam, for this. I think I'm sort of like on the fence almost about the granular detail versus the high level detail. I actually think this case is a good one because it gets the conversation going. For the sitting one, I'd see that like typically GPs, right? Obviously, that's one of those things. Standing could be like a physiotherapist on a specific exercise, or lying could be in a public health sector or public service hospital where the nurse is taking regular observations where the patient's lying down. And so I think from an implementer perspective, knowing that there's an option of different codes that you can use within the observational component, and just flagging that through the specific use cases actually then opens the view to, it's not just I should just be mapping one-to-one to the code that's generic. There are actual options that I could actually put some thought into. So I think it's quite good having the detail there. And obviously this is one specific use case for a specific one that has these examples. I'm sure it's not the case for a lot of other observational codes as well, but I think just generating that conversation is a good one.
Thanks, Tim. Nairi?
Sorry, Danielle, can you hear me now?
I can.
Just having some headset issues. I was just agreeing with what's been talked about and discussed in the chat. Those three examples aren't the only examples that can be used. There are other positions that patients are stated in or arranged in, I guess, clinically to have their blood pressure measured. So I guess the risk is that it's not limited to those three examples. And that's where the value set option that's been discussed in the chat is starting to get my support.
Thanks, Nari. For those of you who aren't reading the chat or can't access the chat, what's being discussed in the chat is that option 1 reduces the risk of people thinking the list is exhaustive, which I think we all recognize is a misread of this content. It does say, for example, but there is some risk of people thinking, oh, great, this is the list. But I think even for both option 1 and 2, what I'm seeing in the chat and in this discussion is that we want to build out a agreed set of terminology for how we do this, which we can't answer right now. So I guess either one is a pathway to having a set of managed terminology. Yorni.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the thing here is just about how much detail we're going to go at this stage, I think, at the end of the day, because even with the blood pressure, I mean, with respect to the sitting, standing, etc., well, what size blood pressure cuff did you use matters just as much, you know? So, and of course, that's not going to be in the SNOMED coding. So when you start going to that kind of granular level, I have to sort of say, well, we have to limit the options to some degree if we're going to go there at all, and at what point. I don't mind, I think, going there. As you said, there's so much work done already, Daniel, that it's probably okay. But at some point, I think we need to allow for modifications down the track and allowing for more granular detail with other things down the track, and accept, you know, that some error will be made in that regard.
So this is quite interesting because essentially there's no normative disagreement here. We're talking about, I guess, the risk of including particular pieces of code, and I've heard in this meeting from quite a few participants who are saying, look, we definitely should give an example, but let's not be too expansive on that, which is option one, and kick off a piece of work that is about, and probably needs to, actually, I'll remove my probably, needs to work with the clinical design group to ensure that we are capturing the right level of content and terminology. And then the other one is saying, well, but we already do all of these things anyway, so why don't we list these for now while also working through that content? So I think I'm hearing at the moment from the people who've spoken, it seems fairly split, half-half.
Yep.
Brett?
I think, I mean, all the GP systems I know support these concepts, and it's a requirement for the decision support usage of them to
I'm
know
gonna
which
create
type
a
it is.
poll. So I'm
So
going to
it's,
create a
yeah, I think
poll,
it's clearly a
and I'm
use
going to
case. Yeah.
do this for option one or option two. I'll do that right now, and we can take the reading of the room. And if we've got a sufficient majority for that, then I'll just create it. It'll take me 2 minutes. On Zoom. Create option one or option two. So this is blood pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Option one, this is okay. This is probably badly defined, but let's have a go. I'm just going to pop it. I think, let me just try to set that off. Launch. You should see in front of you something that, okay, it's called Untitled Poll for. Blood pressure guidance. Option one, that's the 2 bullet points at the top, the short list. Option two is that longer list of things where we call out sitting, standing, and lying. All right, so far option two is winning, but it's very close. It's about 50% of people have voted, so we're waiting for more people to vote on that. And yes, you can pop in the chat if you can't vote using the poll. All right, about 76% of people have voted. I'm going to count this down on whether or not option one, which is the first 2 bullet points of providing an example, is what you choose, or option two, which is those a longer list of examples is what you choose. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end the poll. I will share the results. I will also look at the chat. Okay, option 2 wins. It's relatively close, but it's still significant enough. So option 1 had 14 people voting for it. Option 2 had 20 people voting for it. So I do think we should move forward with a motion on option 2, unless there are, because what I didn't hear were significant objections to option 2. I heard more preferences. I'll ask if anyone has a real significant objection to option 2 and thinks there are serious risks, to just call those out for us now. All right, I'm not hearing that. So, Liam, would you like to make a motion?
Yep. I'll make a motion that we adopt option 2 and add that to the profile-specific guidance of blood pressure.
Thanks, Liam. Who would like to second that?
I'm happy to second. Landon Riley.
Okay. Thanks, Landon. I'm now going to put out the vote. Okay, so for current motion, there is a vote in front of you. Please vote affirmative, negative, or abstain. You can also put your vote in the chat. Okay, 75%, 80, 85%. I'm going to count that down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end that poll. At the moment, we have 31 affirmative, 1 negative, 3 abstain. If the reason the person who voted negative is different to what we've already discussed in the minutes, could you let us know what that is? Could you pop your hand up and articulate it, just so that we've got that captured in the minutes?
That was me, Danielle Rosemary. No, it's exactly what I had tried to articulate in the previous comments.
Thanks, Rosemary. Okay, so that motion is carried. We will put in for the ballot for working standard that change to add in that additional content. Thanks, Liam.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, I will go back to sharing my screen. All right, the next one. The next one is much more editorial. This is actually probably a misclassification. This is probably informative. This one is editorial. It had been briefly raised as something we need to work through in a couple of meetings, but we'd never gotten to it. So AU Base has added in a section on SNOMED CT Australian Edition. So it defines what it is, it talks about how to use it, depending on what you need to do, if you need to be version specific, if you need to do a whole bunch of things for your use cases. It has this nice section here. In AU Core, we make extensive use of SNOMED CT-AU, and we should be pointing back to this guidance. And so the question before this group is, where do we do that? Where in AU Core do we provide a pointer back to this? There's a couple of suggestions here that on our general guidance page, that we have a heading called SNOMED CT-AU Australian Edition, and we just provide a pointer to say, see the guidance in AU Base. And also, we have an existing guidance page that very muchly talks about SNOMED CT-AU because it's about medicines. So in this medicine information page, we have a whole kind of talk about the fact that a lot of the content here is around AMT and its expected usage, that it's recommended to add a sentence here to point to that guidance in AU Base. But this has really opened up to the community. That was kind of what I could think of to do on how we could link back to it. And I guess I'll open that up. Are there any other ways or places that would make sense that we would link to the SNOMED CTAU? Noting we don't want to stick it on every page, but it should be in some kind of obvious landing area. Any thoughts or opinions on it?
I'm not sure. It's Toshi, Daniel. I'm not sure whether it would be worth including something on the terminology page, maybe.
So here?
Or maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. We don't really do guidance or definitional kind of content. It's more of an index.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, if there's no additional suggestions, then I guess I'm putting forward, or does anyone have any problems with us pointing to this guidance on how do you actually say your SNOMED CTAU and how do you use it if you want to declare your version specific or not version specific in AU Core's general guidance and in the medicine information page? And if not, I'm going to have to ask someone to make a motion for this. I know I created this JIRA, but I'm chairing, so I can't motion or vote. So I'll ask if anyone is happy to motion to add in these pointers to that guidance.
I'm happy to motion that. Ryan Maven from the agency.
Thanks, Ryan. Is anyone happy to second that?
I'm happy to second that.
Thanks, Jorn. All right. Unless there are any other questions or comments, I'll pop up the electronic vote for this. All right, not hearing any. You should see in front of you now the vote for that current motion to include those pointers to the AU-based guidance. Again, if you're dialed in, you can't access the chat or the vote, please say your name and your vote, affirmative, negative, or abstain. Or pop your vote in the chat if you can't see the electronic vote in front of you. We've only got 70% of people voting now, so I'll ask for more people to vote, please, before we close this down. Okay, I'm going to count that down. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll and share the results. With the vote in the chat, we have 25 affirmative, 0 negative, and 5 abstain. The motion carries. We will update AU Core to include that guidance content in it. So that's it for the 2 JIRAs. Before I move on, are there any other JIRAs or topics for consideration that people would like to raise before we move to go through like confirming the AU variance statement and maybe look at the comparison page? Hearing none. Okay, and I think I need to pass to you, Dushi. We don't have a slide for it. So
Okay.
I'll stop sharing. Please take us through the AU variance page.
No worries. I will share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. AU Core Variance Statement page.
Yes.
All right. So all HL7AU FAR implementation guides are required to declare variants from AU base and or AU Core. So this shows how the FAR IG aligns with HL7AU national requirements. So we can see from this page that AU Core follows the HL7 variance requirements version 1, which includes requirement to use AU Core profiles, which doesn't apply in this case. It also states should use AU-based profiles and extensions where available, and shall include AU variance statement page, which is this page. So the key points we need to look at is that AU Core has no variance from AU base, so it's fully compliant, which is really expected and not surprising, as our profiles are based on or derived from available AU-based profiles. We can also see that AU Core adds a profile that's not available in AU base. That's AU Core sex assigned at birth profile for extension person recorded sex or gender. So that's really it about the variance statement. Have I missed anything, or are there any comments or questions about this?
I think it's probably worth stating that there has been no change to this page except for upping the version of AU base. So even as we've added the new profiles, the work that the agency has carried through with bringing in an AU Core healthcare service is fully in alignment with AU base. So there's no change to this page because we've added in a new concept. We've made sure that we keep aligned with the national standard that we're looking to align. So all of that has continued through. I don't think, I mean, we've done an assessment and we have some of the automated validation demonstrating this. But if anyone does think there's a variation, because of course, automated validation can only do so much, human eyes only do so much. So if you ever do spot anything, absolutely please raise an item. I'm just going to call out here, there's the proposer change at the bottom. Proposer change isn't just for changes, like I have a fabulous new idea. It's I think there might be an error here. So you can also raise things that we might view as what we call a technical correction. So if you ever spot something like that, you can put it there. You can obviously also put it on Zulip, and we'll probably see that a lot faster if you want to report something. But if you do see anything, whether it's this page or something else, please raise it. That's, you know, we're doing the best checks we can, and we have a lot of great partners in HL7AU and the international tooling and the agency who also work really hard to make sure that this is all in alignment. But, you know, nothing's ever completely perfect.
Thanks, Danielle.
But I think there's probably a good segue into the comparison page, given that this is talking about our upstream requirements that we have an obligation to be conformant to AU base, but AU Core and the way that we've built it sits within an international context. And we won't necessarily redo that here. There's a page in AU Core that talks about the relationship with IPA, IPS, US Core, Gender Harmony, AU CDI, and a whole bunch of other things. Which, yep, that's absolutely
This
a page. Yeah, and that diagram about how we overall align and bring through part of the assessment, and we've been hearing it all along. No, scroll down. That's boring diagram. This one, yeah. Is that as we undertake our work, and we've done that with the new profiles that came through, healthcare service, medication statement, with related person, with updates to terminology, is that we assess this within a national and international context so that we maximize harmonization, you know, reuse. And so part of what we were going to run through today is an update to our comparison page. If you pop back to that, Dushi. So this is there, and personally as a IG editor, I use this extensively. When we're evaluating new requirements coming into AU Core, I can go have a look at this page and work out if that's a requirement that also exists in IPA, IPS, or US Core, how close our alignment is, what are the differences. So we maintain this as we go through. There's an update that's coming shortly for US Core. So IPA 110 is the latest. IPSIG Guide 200 is a moving target. So that's evaluation against the CI build, as in we checked it yesterday. It could be different in 2 days until they finish the work on that, which they're looking to finish in the next month or so. And US Core is now moved to 800, so we will update that on this page. But do you want to give a walkthrough, Dushi, on the content on this page and how people can refer to it?
No worries. All right, so comparison with other national and international IGs, as Danielle gave us the summary, is really comparing or focusing on alignment with 3 international specifications in particular: IPA, IPS, and US Core. So the first part of the page covers the profile comparison. So here we update AU Core profiles against their equivalents in IPA, IPS, and US Core. And we're really looking at requirements like mandatory elements and mass support and any cardinality constraints, data types, terminology, extensions, etc. So we have this table that provides the overview of the comparison. So it shows where AU Core compliant resource it also satisfies requirements of the corresponding profile in each of the 3 IGs. So, and the status of this can be compliant, where there are no changes required. So a system that's compliant with AU Core, or a resource that's compliant with AU Core, is also compliant with compared profiles. Then we have this orange tick where some additional changes or requirements are identified. Incompatible means that they include mutually exclusive requirements. So a resource cannot be compliant to both, I guess. And we also identify where there is no equivalent profile for comparison. So I think it's also important to note that this comparison goes one way. So it goes from AU Core to the compared to the other IG, not the other way around. So looking at the table, if you look at the AU Core allergy and intolerance, we can see that if you satisfy AU Core allergy intolerance, you'll also satisfy requirements of the profiles in IPA and US Core. But there may be some additional requirements for IPS, and that information is included in the table below. So if you scroll down to IPS additional requirements, we can see AU Core profile. We also include a link to the corresponding profile in the IPS. We include a list of elements that have additional requirements, and we describe what the additional requirement is. So we do that for each profile where some additional requirements are identified. I'll just scroll down. I don't think we can go into detail of any of these at the moment, but just showing a list of all additional requirements that we identified. We also look at requirements for missing data and suppressed data. So in this case, we say that AU Core compliant resources are compliant with IPS requirements for missing data, and IPS in this case doesn't have any requirements for suppressed data. We also list additional profiles that are included in the IG, compared IG, where AU Core doesn't include any profiles for these. So again, US Core profile additional requirement.
I think looking at the time, Dushi, you can skip to the next.
Yeah, I think so.
5.
Yeah, I'll go to the next section. So this is a new content. This is where we look at capability statement comparison. So this is where we compare the performance expectations on system, specifically for AU core actors, requester and responder, against equivalent actors in IPA, IPS, and US core. So this covers conformance expectations for these actors, and we map them to similar actors in these 3 implementation guides. So we have this mapping table where we see the actor alignment. So we see that AU core requester maps to IPA client and US core client. There is no equivalent capability or actor in IPS. And AU core responder maps to IPA server and US core server and IPS server, with some limitations there that it's not directly comparable because they serve slightly different purposes. So scrolling down, we have the same comparison table as we did for the profile comparison, except that we are comparing the conformance requirements between AU core actors and these external actors. So this includes system level requirements like interactions and file versions and security expectations, supported formats like XML, JSON, interactions, etc. We also look at capability by resources, where we list all the resources that are supported by capability statement, profiles that are required or supported. We look at interactions, search parameters, and any additional expectations. So like in the profile comparison table, we provide a summary of comparison where 2 can be fully compliant. There may be some additional requirements that are identified by orange tick, and again, incompatible where there are some mutually exclusive requirements for the 2. And we also identify where there is no equivalent capability statement or support for a particular resource type. So again, we show results of comparison for AU core requester against mapped actors or equivalent actors in the 3 IGs and also responder. Where there are some additional requirements, we also provide a table that includes more details about these additional requirements. So for example, sorry for all the scrolling, like if we look at, let's look at AU core requester comparison with IPA client capability statement. So we can see that IPA has some additional requirements. So if we scroll down, additional requirements for the supported implementation guides. We can see that IPA has a requirement, shell support, smart app launch. So AU core includes this requirement too, but it's not a shell, where IPA makes this requirement stronger. So to make this obvious in this additional requirements table, we provide additional information or these icons where orange arrow up means stronger. So that means that the requirement is present in AU core capability statement as well, but the compared capability statement straighten that requirement. So it goes from should to shall, for example, like in this case, and where we have a white plus and a blue background, that's a new requirement. So it means that this requirement is not in AU core at all. So this sort of helps us see the full extent of the differences where we may need extra support to fully conform to these other capability statements. So in interest of time, I'll just quickly scroll down to show the full list of additional requirements for the to AU Core actors comparison results. So there is a lot, and we can't go through it all today. So I think to wrap up, I'll just say that this page intends to compare AU Core with IPS IPAU score, both at profile and capability statement level. So this helps us see where AU Core is fully aligned or where there are some additional requirements that apply and where there is no matching profile or capability. So this really makes the difference clear and easy to see and easy to act on, I guess, for anyone working across these specs. So I think I'll stop here for any comments or questions. Sorry if that's been too
Thanks, Joshi.
messy, but there's lot of information to cover.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. It's one of the things people have asked for consistently. This content's also being cited by the authors of IPA, US Core, and IPS, who have also reviewed this content. I won't say they've fully gone to every specific detail, but they've all looked at this and are happy with it, which is very nice of them. I appreciate the fact that they've taken the time to have a look at this. Any questions or anything people want Dushi to run through today? You can always post things later. All right. Not hearing any. I will take back over Dushi, and thank you very much for showing us that.
Thank you.
And
I'll stop sharing.
yep, I'll move to wrap up today. Okay. So we've gone through the variance statement. We've done a run through of the comparison page for everyone. It's great to see we've got that level of detail in there now. Coming to the end. So by our next call, we are looking to have all changes in the draft and to walk through that next week with everyone. So we'll look through what the entire scope is we've agreed to. We will look at our QA.html. If anyone identifies any errors or has any really significant last minute things they can raise, we can try to get through them in that call. But this is really our last one. And then we are publishing the ballot snapshot on the 4th of August. So that's the plan for that call. So what that means is that's our agenda. 24th of July, approval of minutes, QA HTML review, walkthrough of ballot scope. If we've got time, there's some of our items in our backlog that we have discussed in multiple meetings as saying, look, this isn't something we're going to work on now. And I think that to provide a clean set of statuses, we should actually mark these as deferred. So I'm going to try to work with the other AU Core TDG co-chairs to prepare a proposal for a set of items we should be deferring based on already agreed kind of discussions that we've had. Is there anything else that people would like to put on the agenda for our next meeting? And if you can't think of anything now, but something does occur to you, you can email or message any of the co-chairs. You can also comment on Confluence on the next meeting's agenda, which is there to ask for something to be added. And we will add it to that agenda. Okay. Does anyone want to make any comments or any final statements before we wrap up for today? All right, we've got through in record time. Fantastic. I'll close it there. Give everyone a few minutes back. Thanks everyone for your time today.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.